And we're live. What's up, guys? Nick Script on the P2W Fantasy Podcast. And what we got going on today, and we're near live in the draft, under a minute, have an underdog, the puppy live draft. And as you can see, I have the promo code there if you want an automatic deposit matchup when you sign up. Use promo code P2W Fantasy. And it's a partner site of mine for Underdog. I know a lot of people just have promo codes. It's an actual partner site. So if you are not on Underdog, go check that out. The puppy draft that I'm doing today, it's a $5 draft, and it's a bit different than the last puppy draft that came out because that draft was normal one quarterback. This one's a bit different. It's two quarterbacks. So you can start two quarterbacks, super flex. God, the one thing that irks me though about this draft is this is like my third or fourth one, and I've been at the 10 spot every single time, I think, which is so strange to me. I have never been a top 3 pick. So, with it being super flex, what I've noticed from doing these, I think this is my fourth one, and I think 3 out of 4, again, at the 10 spot. But you'll notice that the quarterbacks fly off the board. So, for those of you that are not familiar with super flex leagues, you have to start one quarterback, and then you have a super flex, meaning it can be any position. But most people will want to start two quarterbacks, which is why the draft kind of shifts. The puppy drafts or some of these other underdog drafts with one quarterback only, a guy like Josh Allen, who is pretty much the consensus 101 for quarterbacks that I've seen, he'll go maybe in like the third or fourth round. So very different. So finally we see Jonathan Taylor off the board at the 1-4 after Allen, Mahomes, and Herbert. Let's see if we can actually see there we go. See the actual draft board here. I think it's big enough. I mean, we could make it bigger. There we go. So we'll see what falls to me. I think, being at this 110 spot, I think I've gone quarterback right away in one of them for sure. And then in another one, I think I went like Justin Jefferson with my first pick. I'm tempted to go like Christian McCaffrey here. And you'll say, well, if the quarterbacks are flying off the board, why would you take that risk? And I think it's because, just looking at this, I pick again a couple picks later. So if I can solidify 2 studs, one for the quarterback position, one for the running back or wide receiver, I think that's a bit of a game changer for me personally. So I could go Russell Wilson, Tom Brady, Dak, but I'll get one of those guys when it comes back to me. So Christian McCaffrey can finish as the number 1 running back this season if he plays for a full season. I know it's a big asterisk for people. People are worried, but when this guy's on the field, he looks like he's the best in the NFL. And I know we got a lot of Jonathan Taylor truthers, and I'm one of them too, but he already went. So if I can take the second best running back available, it might change the draft a bit for some of these other guys who already took a quarterback. So some guy might, take Russell Wilson, who might be, somewhere between 1 and 10. I'm taking McCaffrey with the mentality that he can be somewhere between 1 and 3 for his position. So quarterbacks are flying off the board. I'm probably going to have to take one and solidify that position. But we're looking at Tom Brady, Trey Lance, Matthew Stafford. Tom Brady, I think, will be my pick if he comes to me, just because I don't think a ton will change for him in this coming season. Obviously, Chris Godwin's gone. They brought in Russell Gage, and he goes. So I'll stop talking about him. Trey Lance presents a lot of upside. Matthew Stafford had a great season last year, and now they added Allen Robinson. So I really like, Trey Lance's upside for fantasy. Rodgers, I'm shying away from a bit. I have him on the outside of my top 12. Derek Carr is really, really interesting to me, and I think I'm going to reach on Derek Carr here, but it's a battle between him and Trey Lance. You know what? I think I'm going to go with Derek Carr, who was a quarterback 12 last year, and his ADP is around that right now. But if we look at what Derek Carr did last season, he operated well for fantasy with Hunter Renfrow being his only option at times. Him and maybe Josh Jacobs and then a few other guys. Zay Jones had some big games. Darren Waller missed plenty of time. Ruggs had the terrible incident that he did. Now we add hopefully a healthy season of Darren Waller, hopefully full season with Devontae Adams, his college wide receiver, and Renfro, who's still going to be in the mix, and Josh Jacobs. And, we look at this team, and I think Derek Carr's upside is there. Upside to me for the passing position, passing game is, I'm sorry, for the quarterback position is passing upside, being like 300 plus throwing days or multiple touchdown throwing days, or rushing upside. So I could have went with the rushing upside of Trey Lance, but I feel a little bit more comfortable, even though if you say who's got more, a safer floor, maybe you say it's Trey Lance because of that high rushing upside. But I'm comfortable taking Carr because I feel like Carr's gonna have a big season. So we'll likely, as the picks continue to fall down the board, I got a lot before it's me. Knowing that a lot of guys around me already took a quarterback, I'm hoping that I can get a solidified second option here. And I've seen some people talk about having 4 quarterbacks in these drafts, and I'm kind of on the fence about that because you have to start one, and your super flex can be any position, and it's best ball, so they take the best scores. So, for instance, if I am looking at a guy like, I don't know, Matt Ryan. If Matt Ryan scores 18 fantasy points, but a guy like Mike Williams scores 19, Mike Williams is going in that super flex position. So that's kind of my mentality. I think, some people have overstressed the quarterback position in these drafts, but maybe I'm on the outside and maybe I'm the one wrong here. But I'll continue to see who falls to me and just kind of go that way. We had a stream recently, Scott Barrett and Liam Murphy and I led the discussion. Those guys talked some best ball strategy, and what Liam talked about, who won Best Ball Mania 2 last year, so he won the big prize. I think it was $1 million. Talked about having a plan and having strategy, but also just kind of going with the draft. And I think that's important because this draft I'm in right now is probably completely different than the last the puppy draft that I did, and I was at the same draft position. So you just kind of have to go. Same with your home leagues for just regular fantasy football. You might be, in one home league where somebody reaches on, I don't know, somebody reaches 102 and takes Justin Jefferson, let's say. And I'm not saying you shouldn't, but it changes the whole draft. Or you might be in one, home league where Josh Allen, a quarterback, goes at pick number 10 out of 12. And, it's a one quarterback league. Should he have done that? Probably not. But then that pick throws off everything. So, you should be prepared. You can come in with tiers to your fantasy drafts. These are 30 seconds. So they do have the option of, I think, a slow draft. So you get hours to make the pick. I'm not really a fan of that unless it's like a buddies league, just because I'm impatient and I want to just get it done. But we'll see how this draft falls for us here. So it shows my team, my pick position. Oh, there we go. So we got Derek Carr, Christian McCaffrey. And if you are new to Underdog, there's a lot of different options on there. You can do over and under picks, which I like to do during the NBA playoffs. I was doing a lot of over and under picks. You can cash in money there. You can do daily drafts, so like baseball drafts during the season. I think there's that option too. But these drafts are all like fantasy football leagues where you draft it. You never have to set your lineup, and it just scores your best scores for that given week. Let's see what's going on here. So I did want to go to quarterback. So I'm hoping the next 2 picks are not, Fields, Tua. So hopefully not Tua here. I would like Tua, at this spot. This guy's got no quarterback, so he might be thinking about one right here, though. Trevor Lawrence, some people think, will have and there goes Tua, bounce back season. Matt Ryan has some passing upside. Daniel Jones, I think, is a sleeper. I might just take the best option available. And this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to solidify another position. So here's a little bit different of a draft strategy. Maybe it'll bite me in the ass because my quarterbacks don't look good right now in a super flex, but I got a guy who I'm pretty high on in Derek Carr. I think he can finish top 10. Christian McCaffrey, in a perfect world, finishes 1 or 2. Mark Andrews, in a perfect world, finishes 1 or 2. And Kelsey was already off the board. Pitts, love Pitts. He can probably finish 1 through 3 as well. But I'm just looking at my team and I'm just solidifying each position right now. And maybe that's not the best draft strategy, but we'll see how it plays out in the long run here. I'm definitely taking a quarterback. Lawrence, Ryan, or Daniel Jones. Winston's got a lot of passing upside as well. Interesting. Or do I want to go wide receiver and risk it all here? Gambling on Trevor Lawrence, and I've been a guy that's ripped Trevor Lawrence before. He had a terrible season. We can blame Urban Meyer, we can blame the system, we can blame the options, but he had a terrible season last year. And we've seen quarterbacks in the past like do decent with not the greatest of options. But if Trevor Lawrence adding not the best weapons, but adding Christian Kirk, adding Evan Ingram, adding his buddy Travis Etienne from Clemson. Maybe there's some more to bank on with Trevor Lawrence. So a little iffy on that Lawrence pick. Sup, D Brown, my guy. Little iffy on that Lawrence pick. In all honesty, probably maybe I could have waited, but seeing how the draft is going right now, I think I just kind of had to. So again, for these $5 drafts, obviously you want to win the whole thing, and that's the goal. Play to win. But I also think you're risking $5 that you probably burned at the grocery store this morning or something. So it's all right to kind of play around with these drafts and just see how things work and what falls to you. So really like McCaffrey at 10, and I like Derek Carr, I like Mark Andrews. Trevor Lawrence is my question mark, but there's just so many picks before it comes back to me. So I kind of want to see how it falls through. So let's take a look at how other people are drafting. So we got this guy drafted now. He's got 2 quarterbacks. Got back-to-back here. He only has 1, so I'm wondering if he takes one. T. Higgins is a guy I thought about at my turn, and he just went right there. Got a couple guys with 1 quarterback. So we do have a guy with 3 and one with 1. So maybe I could have waited on a quarterback, but we'll see how it plays out. Initially you saw so many go right away, and then it kind of pauses because maybe this is like a tier of sleepers, but it's pretty thin if you look at it. I mean, I do like Jameis Winston for this year, especially seeing, Olave and Landry and hopefully Michael Thomas. Zach Wilson showed some signs of improvement last year. Now he adds Garrett Wilson, Elijah Moore, Corey Davis, and 2 serviceable tight ends in Conklin and Uzoma. Mac Jones, pretty solid last year, just not maybe solid in the fantasy world. Jared Goff, I do like Jared Goff. I always get shit for that, but again, if you like everybody around him, you like Swift and Hawkinson and Amon-Ra St. Brown and Shark and Jameson Williams, and if those guys are successful, hopefully, it makes sense that their quarterback is sufficient or efficient, and that's Jared Goff. Wide receivers, I'm iffy on Sutton. I think he's going to have some good best ball games, and I think he's a good best ball. My guy Steve, what's good? And am I on the clock? Yes, I am on the clock. So I already got my tight end. Running back here, I can wait to my next pick to do that. I could grab another quarterback if I wanted to. I think I'm going to go it's either Deontay Johnson or Jalen Waddle for me. And I think I'm going to go Jalen Waddle. And the presence of Tyreek Hill changes some things, obviously. But Jalen Waddle last year, his connection with Tua, he has the most receptions ever for a rookie wide receiver. And we know him with the ball in his hands. He's got elite speed, and he can make plays. So, I know Hill is going to get tons and tons of work. But to say like Waddle is now, we thought he's probably a top 12 guy going into the season. Now, is he a guy beyond the 20 position? I don't think so. I really don't. Because I think that this offense is built for guys to succeed, similar to the 49ers offense, which McDaniel's coming from. All right, so Connor, Elliott, Hall, Montgomery. So things are going to get thin if I fade this, but I think I might. I'm a massive Jerry Jeudy guy, and I'm going to take him in best ball drafts when I can. DK is probably going to be good. Bateman's going to be good. Deontay Johnson. I will go Deontay Johnson, though. And the reason being is, to me, the system, so Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, George Pickens, Fryermuth, Najee Harris, all guys that will get work. Nothing to me in my mind, in Mike Tomlin's offense, Mike Tomlin's Steelers here, nothing in my mind says there might be a change of guard of who is the guy, regardless of if it's Mitch Trubisky or Pickett. So with Deontay Johnson, knowing in my mind he's going to get volume and maybe some deeper volume this season than what he saw last year, I'm still all in on Deontay Johnson. I think he is a guy that does great with the volume that he receives. I think he's a guy that's going to be still important to his offense. And, we want to talk about, too many mouths to feed all the time, but I think you have to figure out who takes away from each other. Does Claypool or Pickens take away from Deontay Johnson, or does Claypool and Pickens take away from each other? To me, it might be each other. Hopefully my connection doesn't take a shit here. Breece Hall, Zeke Elliott. So the running backs are starting to go. I could have thought about both of those guys and James Conner. I think you can make an argument that all three of those guys might have the opportunity to be top 12 guys or top 14 guys in this coming season. The running back position is one that we rank out all the time, and sometimes we're close and sometimes we're way off. And we look at last season with the injuries of Barkley and Derrick Henry and Christian McCaffrey and, guys like Patterson, coming out of nowhere. And 2 seasons ago, it was James Robinson coming out of nowhere. So it's a position that is thin, in my opinion, but pretty unpredictable. So I'm a guy that loves to go heavy running back for redraft leagues. But again, like I said earlier, you got to just play the board. Looks like the quarterbacks are nearing the end here, actually. So we got Deshaun Watson, Marcus Mariota, Kenny Pickett, Baker Mayfield, Mitch Trubisky, Jimmy G, Desmond Ridder, Sam Darnold. So the issue with this group of quarterbacks is the major question mark that's attached to them. Deshaun Watson, is he going to play one game ever again? Is he going to play the full season? We're not sure. Marcus Mariota, will he start the full season? Will Ridder win the job? We're not sure. So there's Ridder and there's Marcus Mariota. Same with Kenny Pickett, who's going ahead of Mitch Trubisky. I think Mitch Trubisky starts the season. Could Kenny Pickett win the job? Is Baker Mayfield going to find a team? We keep saying it's getting close, but it's not there yet. Jimmy G, is he going to find a team? Is Sam Darnold going to start the year as the Carolina, starting quarterback? So I would debate grabbing my third quarterback here because I have 2 in a super flex, but I also need to fill my team a bit better. I actually think that, so it's interesting because I really like Jerry Jeudy. Dobbins has been scaring me. I do like Elijah Mitchell. Antonio Gibson's got a big question marks because of his system. So do I take Marcus Mariota? I'm going to take Elijah Mitchell, I think. I need to solidify my running back room a little bit more. If I get screwed out of the quarterback position, then it is what it is, I guess. We'll see if in a couple picks if Jerry Jeudy or Brandon Cooks, there goes Brandon Cooks, maybe Jerry Jeudy will fall. Probably not. In wide receiver, I got 2 guys that I feel like have the ability to be top 12 or top maybe 14-ish. But 2 guys that will give you sporadically top 5, top 10 weeks. So I'm okay. In wide receiver, if we scroll all the way down, we still are seeing guys that can be very, very useful. So 2 picks away. If Jerry Jeudy's there, I'm going to take Jerry Jeudy. I'm super high in Jerry Jeudy. I believe in the talent still. He was injured last season and kind of fucked things up. But when he was on the field, he was getting the work over a sudden. But we got a new quarterback with Russell Wilson. But he's attached to Russell Wilson. I'm hoping that 2 picks later, he is not taken. And if he is, then I might take Marcus Mariota. So Drake London goes. Love Drake London, but I'm not taking him over Jeudy. So we're 1 pick away. We'll see if I get sniped. If I get sniped, then I'm pivoting. So I'm going to go Jerry Jeudy, even though maybe I should take my third quarterback. I'm taking Jerry Jeudy. I truly believe in his talent. I've always been a truther of his, and attached to Russell Wilson means a lot. You can argue all day Sutton versus Jeudy, but at the end of the day, their quarterback situation is much better. My guy TD, what's good? Guys, got to check out This guy's YouTube channel, this guy's TikTok, he's grinding. I try to, work my ass off. This guy grinds nonstop as well. So it's much love to this guy. I had him on the show not long ago, and he's plugging away every single day, just like I am. So that's why I think we have a mutual respect, is because we're both just hustling all the time. So shout out to the homie there. We'll see. J.K. Dobbins, A.J. Dillon just went. So the running backs, a little bit thinner. Where am I at for running backs? So I got Elijah Mitchell, Christian McCaffrey. I feel like Elijah Mitchell, I made a quick video about him recently. I feel like there's not a lot of hype to him, but, I talked about it last year. He got banged up. Jeff Wilson came in and started and actually balled out in one or two of those games. But as soon as Elijah Mitchell came back, there wasn't a committee approach. It was him getting a majority of the work. Jeff Wilson almost got like zero. So, people will talk about the rookie that they just drafted. I think they need depth. They saw that last year. They had multiple guys banged up. Trey Sermon, maybe some people still have some sort of hope for, but to me, Elijah Mitchell was very, very good in the games he played last year. He got a lot of rushing yards. He was able to score, able to handle volume, like 20 carry days. So, this is an offense that maybe lost their OC, but I don't think it's going to pivot to being completely different. The head coach is still there. But if Mitchell's the guy and he's healthy, what he can do for fantasy, I think, is a bit slept on. And you can say, well, in the past, they've had a different running back the last X amount of years, and, they always go with a new running back in the system. You can say all those things, but then, it kind of bites you in the ass a little bit when he goes out there and balls, and you're like, oh, shit. I mean, he was good last season when he played. They gave him all the work, but I was too worried about narratives. And that's something you kind of got to be careful, I think, sometimes in the fantasy or best ball or, sports world in general, is just like sticking with the narrative. Just like I talked about with DeAndre Swift in the past. Like DeAndre Swift, people were saying, well, the Lions never had a good running back, and, the bad teams can't have good running backs. And like DeAndre Swift wasn't the running back 5-10 years ago, right? So like, why compare histories and narratives to new guys in the system? It just doesn't make a ton of sense to me. So end of the rant there. But Lazard, CEH, Pollard, we're getting some interesting guys off the board. There's my guy Elijah Moore that will not follow me, that I am super into as well. Mariota goes. I'm glad I didn't take him because he was still lasting all the way to there. So it seems like I would have been reaching a little bit. Elijah Moore, really believe in Elijah Moore. I would love for him to fall, but I doubt that's going to be the case. We're good. We already got our tight end, so we're really good until the very end of the draft for that position. Man, that'd be clutch if Elijah fell. Hunter Renfrow over Elijah Moore. That's insane. There goes Elijah Moore. Running backs, super thin now. Super, super thin. There's guys down there that I'd be willing to take, though, that fall. I'm on the board. Michael Thomas, Russell Gage, Ayuk, Kirk, Kadarius Toney. Interesting. Do I take one of these quarterbacks? It's a big risk, in my opinion, too, to take somebody there. I'm going to go Russell Gage, and I'll say why in a second. So Tom Brady voiced that this guy needed to be a Buccaneer. And when Tom Brady says anything to an offense or an organization, things tend to just work out that way. And right now he's taking the Godwin role. So the second option in the offense behind Evans, Gronk just retired. And even when Godwin comes back, which I think is going to be much later than people are projecting, but even when Godwin comes back, look at when it was Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and Antonio Brown. I don't think Russell Gage is as good as any of those guys, but the third option was very, very fantasy useful. So, Russell Gage, are we too high in Russell Gage right now? I don't know, but he's the second Tom Brady, option. So to me, that means a lot. My brother's calling me some. Hey, I'm on a live stream. No, you're not. Swear to God. Look on Twitter. I gotta go. There we go. That's how it's done. We got two running backs. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 wide receivers. So quarterback, maybe we should have took one earlier, but I'm looking at some of these other guys in this group, and there's a lot of 2 quarterback teams. So maybe, a guy or there with 3, but man, we can maybe just take Sam Darnold later. So, looking at the wide receiver group, Christian Kirk and Tony and Lockett are all guys I would debate on taking right here. Patterson, Hunt, Singletary, Cook. This is interesting. So I think I'm going to go Kareem Hunt. Here's a couple of reasons why. So I'm projecting Deshaun Watson's not playing. I'm just going to have to go that route and go, negative with it. I think that if that's the case, the importance of the run game will continue to be there. I know they added Amari Cooper and David Bell, and I'm not saying Jacoby Brissett, who probably will be the starter if Watson's out of the picture, can't be, he can't have some competence in, play sufficiently. I'm not going to say that, but I think Kareem Hunt and, Nick Chubb, we've seen, I think 2 years ago, both of those guys be extremely fantasy relevant. And now if you get a little bit more of like Kareem Hunt throwing himself in the slot a little bit, having some schemed options of him having the pass catching upside, that's good. If he alleviates some work from Nick Chubb, that's great. And here's the bank on it, and don't bank on it, but it's whimsical thought here is that if for some reason he ends up on a different team, and people threw it out there on Twitter the other day, Kareem Hunt goes from being drafted at pick, whatever we're at, one. And here, my brother FaceTimes me. Hey, I'm on a stream. All right. I'm not putting this on the podcast, so if I get some interruptions, I don't give a shit. It's all good. I kind of thought about that the other day. I did a live stream draft, and I have to like consciously tell myself that people are not seeing the stream when they're listening to it in their car. So I have to like walk through every single pick. And like for this, I have not been MVS goes. I can't stand MVS. I'm glad he goes. I have to walk through every single pick because you're sitting in your car and you're like, all right, he picked Russell Gage, but who did he pick Russell Gage over? That's a big question mark. But that's why I'm keeping this one off, because I've just been going on rants about random things here. And my kid, Mila, she is asleep right now, and it's just us here. So I had a bank on doing a stream, but love it, man. Love the grind. Love just hustling and sharing thoughts and sharing content. If this gets 20 views or 20,000 views, it is what it is, man. You just got to be about the waves if you're doing anything content related. All right, so we just took a running back last round. Christian McCaffrey, Elijah Moore, Kareem Hunt. We got Waddle, Deontay Johnson, Jerry Jeudy, Russell Gage. And we don't need to take a running back for a while. Kind of got to figure out how many picks I have left maybe after this one. But let's see what we got on the board. Olave, Garrett Wilson, Tyler Boyd. We don't have Garrett Wilson, Tyler Boyd, Christian Watson, Michael Gallup. So some interesting guys here because there's a lot of risk with all of those guys. Same with this group. This is interesting. This is tough. This is really tough. I'm going to go Chris Olave. I really like Tyler Boyd. Jameson Williams, like, you can think about, but this whole group is just big question marks. I really do like Tyler Boyd, and I would have juggled him. Chris Olave, elite at getting open. After the catch, through contact, maybe not so much, but, this is a guy that was the guy on Ohio State when Justin Fields was there. And Jameis Winston is a quarterback that brings some passing upside. And, Alvin Kamara, there's a big question mark with him now because there's a chance he is suspended. And they said something along the lines of he is gearing up to be suspended. So if he's suspended and it's Mark Ingram, this isn't a running offense. This isn't an offense that focuses on throwing Mark Ingram the ball either. So that changes a lot of things there. Same with the risk to these running backs because, all three of these guys, Jones, Pierce, White, how much work are they going to get? Could they steal the job? I might go and grab. Let's grab Mitch. Pickett might come in and steal the job at some point. What I didn't check was the bye weeks. Oh, God, good. Be mindful of the bye weeks if it's a super flex. So we got 6, 11, and 9, which is good. Mitch provides some upside on the ground. Mitch has been fantasy relevant, I think, year 2 in his past. Being a Chicago Bears fan, I was pretty harsh on Mitch Trubisky in his consistency, and I think that was fair because he wasn't a very consistent quarterback, but kind of shitty system in all honesty. Coaching was not always the best. He had a good, half season or 75% of the season with Allen Robinson that year that Robinson had a really good season. And now you put Mitch Trubisky on a team with Najee Harris, Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, Chase Claypool, Pat Freiermuth. So if he ends up being the guy, I am confident that he's going to have some decent weeks. And I'm not going to say he's going to be a top 10, 12 guy, but for us being late in the draft, it being a super flex, that's something I'm comfortable taking, I think, right there. It's a little risky, but to me, worth the risk because, again, super flex, you want to have 3 quarterbacks in all honesty, and some of these teams have 3. I think there's at least one guy who has like 3 or 4 or something like that, but yeah, let's see what else we're rocking with right now. Gesicki, Galladay, Freiermuth. So Freiermuth and Gesicki, that's pretty interesting that they go so close to Kenny Galladay. But as we're trucking along here, let's get the board back up. So let's see how many picks I actually do have left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 or 9 picks. All right. Because as you go, my thing is for the tight end position specifically, you're either drafting one of the studs and then fading your second guy until the end of the draft, or you are fading the position a little bit, and then you got to grab some guys that have that ability to be top 12 guys. So like Gesicki and Freiermuth, you might argue that they can fight to be that guy. Irv Smith, maybe he's a sleeper. I mean, then you got to take some chances. But, I've seen some drafts, and we talked about it before, where guys try to get Kelsey and Andrews. And, that's either a block the board mentality or it's these guys will perform better than wide receivers I would have took mentality. So there's a lot of strategy, I think, with the tight end position. There's a lot of strategy for sure in this draft with the quarterback position because it's a super flex league, so you have to factor in that you probably want to start 2 of these guys. I'm still kind of about the Lawrence pick, but hopefully that plays off well in our factors. So again, 3 running backs, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wide receivers. So maybe I try to get next best running back, but who that's going to be is kind of interesting because like Chase Edmonds is a guy that I have liked to, take at this point in the draft. Let's see when he went. A bit ago, I think. Not this far in the draft would I have taken him, but so do I take a Rachaad White or Michael Carter? I think wide receivers, I can kind of punt that right now. I can take another quarterback, which would be, maybe overdoing it a little bit. I might go Michael Carter because I've seen Michael Carter play, and I'm a big Breece Hall guy, but I still think that Carter will have somewhat of a role. And if we look at maybe handcuffs, right? Is Michael Carter one of the better handcuffs if Hall takes a majority of the snaps? I don't know. Maybe not top, 3 or something. He's probably not Tony Pollard or, Melvin, whoever doesn't get the most work between Javonte and Melvin Gordon. So probably Melvin Gordon. But, I think I can see him taking work. Rachaad White, I think people are overly optimistic about him taking a lot of passing work. And maybe he's a good handcuff as well, but he could get no work. Wide receivers, quarterbacks. This is interesting. Do I go another quarterback? Do I go another running back? I think I'm going to go here, and I'll tell you why. Devontae Parker, and I made a video about him being a potential sleeper. But Devontae Parker, when healthy, the first couple weeks in Miami last season, he was getting a lot of targets every single week. And you can say, well, they had this guy, and that guy there. They did have Jalen Waddle. They did have Mike Gesicki. Myles Gaskin, in the past, I don't know what his opening of the season looked like off the top of my head, but Parker was earning targets. And a lot of people stand that, targets are earned. And Parker, I think in 2019 had a phenomenal season, had one of the most, he was a wide receiver that had one of the most receiving yards. He had a ton of touchdowns as well. For the Patriots, Myers commands a lot of targets, from a shorter distance. Kendrick Bourne's a guy that I like late because last season he had a couple games of like 20 fantasy points because he caught like 3 balls for 90 yards and a touchdown. He had those big games, Kendrick Bourne. So he's a bit of a sleeper too. But Parker could come in and be the alpha. And a lot of people will fade him because of his injury history. But let's say at this point in the draft, we're almost 170 picks in. If I can get a couple splash games out of Devontae Parker where he gets 7-8 targets and he turns one of them into a touchdown for Mac Jones, who we know could pass the ball pretty efficiently, I think that's a decent pick. And, guys are projected lower and lower and lower because of injury history, and there is a risk with it. But at the same time, I think sometimes we kind of sleep on guys that can do well for us in these best ball tournaments where I don't have to worry about, do I start Parker? Do I not start him? For these sort of leagues, he's going to be thrown into the mix in your starting lineup if he performs that way. So I'll take the risk. Wonder if Sam Darnold will fall. No, he did not. We go down the list. I mean, Geno Smith might start. Oh, Sam Darnold's right there. Yeah. Wonder if he falls. Unless Baker comes in and beats him for the job, Baker can go to Carolina or Seattle. Unless Baker, comes in and wins that job, Sam Darnold's the starter right now. And last year, he actually did pretty decent with his legs, which was interesting to see. Cam Newton was on the team, and, he came in when Darnold got hurt. Him and DJ had a decent connection as well. So if he falls me, I'll take Sam Darnold, but let's see if not. Algier, all these guys. Khalil Herbert's more to me is a handcuff, but other guys are saying he can, take more work. J.D. McKissick's decent, a decent pick to think about as well, but I can probably wait. I'm gonna go Sam Darnold. If if Baker comes in and wins the job, that's a risk. We can look at Drew Lock. We can look at Geno Smith. One of those two is going to be a starter. Superflex, I'm going to take Sam Darnold. He had some decent weeks last season. His play dropped off with McCaffrey out of the mix. So let's say in a world where he is the starter and I have Christian McCaffrey, maybe I got a decent stack right there, which is such a unsexy stack to talk about. But I mean, if it gives me some sort of upside 2 weeks into this season where somebody else could have made that useful, then I'll take it right there. I probably need to take a stab at a running back, I would think, at this next pick. James Robinson, I've been taking a little bit, but I don't know his timeline. McKissick and Mack, those are guys that might get the work that will make them useful. Algier could either be a guy that gets a lot of work or zero work. So it's just a little bit of risk there. Pickens, Bell, those are decent options right there. Will Fuller is a guy you can throw a dart on. AJ Green with no Hopkins for a couple weeks. Do I need my second tight end, though, as we're getting thinner and thinner and thinner? Austin Hooper. All right, let's see. I might take a stab. George Pickens, David Bell. This is where things get a little bit confusing. All right, so I took J.D. McKissick, and the reason being he could have went to Buffalo. He didn't go to Buffalo. It looked like it was solidified that he was going to go there. He didn't go to Buffalo because I think that he knows his role with the Commanders. And the role with the Commanders is he gets weeks where he has 6 catches. And if he scores on one of those 6 catches or 5 catches, that's good upside to have on your team. Did I need to take him right there? We'll see as, we look at the other positions, but JD's not going to get that sort of work week in and week out consistently. But if we can get a split of games this season where he gets the passing work that'll make him relevant for fantasy, then I think it's worth a stab because they brought him back. So they said, he said, Buffalo's got an offer on the board. Should I, go and, he's thinking to himself, should I go and change scenes? And then the Commanders went and said, no, come back. You know how things are here. You know your role here. And he chose the Commanders. And, if we look and we can say, like, hey, who has a better shot of winning a Super Bowl? It's obviously the Buffalo Bills, who I think have Vegas odds the best shot at winning a Super Bowl. But I think, again, where you know what your work's going to be like, where you know the system, I don't mind taking J.D. McKissic there as I go on a rant. When I thought about like David Bell and some of these other guys, are still going to be there. Austin Hooper to me is interesting. Reports came out and said that as he goes, but reports came out and said that Tannehill prefers Hooper. We're not sure how Burks is going to work. Is Robert Woods going to be completely healthy week 1? Brevin Jordan's a guy I also kind of like as a sleeper. Let's see when my bye week is. Week 10. So Brevin Jordan would be interesting. I really like Trey McBride, but it's a dilemma for me because I feel like he's a great dynasty player to have. Could they run 2 tight end sets with him and Zach Ertz? Not entirely sure if that's what's in store. If it is in store, then maybe he's a bit of a sleeper himself. But if it's not, then we're kind of just not hoping, but we're only having him for the potential for an injury. So depending on who gets picked these next 2, I might take David Bell and then get my second tight end later. How many picks do we got left? Got a couple picks left. So I'm on the clock. So Will Fuller could be good if he finds a team. We don't know though. So I'm gonna take David Bell and then pray that another tight end is left for me. No, I forgot that I got a couple picks in between. So I probably can go David Bell and then Brevin Jordan if he falls to me. And I think that's a good strategy to think about. If you got a couple picks, if you have a couple picks, between, the pick you're on and the pick you're about to have. So for me, I had 1, 2, 3, 4 picks in between these 2. That's a decent strategy to have. I'm juggling 2 guys. I'll take the higher guy with, in terms of ADP, and then hope that, the guy lower down the board, which was Brevin Jordan, falls to me. And that's who I will take as my second tight end. And I'm done at tight end. I don't need 3 because Mark Andrews, knock on wood, healthy for the full season. He should be my guy every single week, except for week 10, where Brevin Jordan will be my guy. Is there a risk if there's an injury? Sure. But again, if I solidify one of the top 3 tight ends in fantasy for this coming season, then I don't need to stack that position at all. Quarterbacks, I think it is good that I took a couple or a handful because, again, I'm pretty locked in with Derek Carr. Lawrence, some people are saying, is going to have, the potential for a breakout, but even if he's better, and Mitch Trubisky is the starter for most of the season and Sam Darnold ends up the starter, then I think I have some options that, if one guy is terrible, then the other guys can, pick them up, I guess. So looking at the grid, almost done here. 2 more picks. So now guys are probably going to start. Mark Ingram is actually a pretty good pick at that point. Didn't even think about him, especially if Alvin Kamara is out of the mix for multiple weeks. Mark Ingram is going to be the guy. Maybe some guys say, well, what about Tony Jones? But Tony Jones had that one start, and it was like the biggest fantasy trap. I think he had like 2 fantasy points. So, maybe we just caught him on a bad week, but 2 more picks. Looking at my team, running back wise, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 running backs. It's probably enough in all honesty. And then, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 wide receivers. Definitely taking a wide receiver. Just juggling if I take 1 wide receiver or 2 wide receivers. And it's interesting because if Waddle, Deontay Johnson, Judy are guys that I can trust weekly. And then, Russell Gage goes crazy, then Russell Gage can be my super flex at the end of the day. Or if Devontae Parker week 2 has, 5 catches for 100 yards and a touchdown, then maybe he's my super flex and I don't have to worry about who is solidified with these quarterbacks. But again, pretty happy with McCaffrey at 10. Pick 82 for Mitchell. I think that's a decent value. Kareem Hunt, there's a wide range of what can happen, I guess, but I think he'll be pretty safe even if he's, on Cleveland. And even if Watson is playing, I think Kareem Hunt will still have some weekly value. And we're good at tight end, so we'll see what falls to us. We got 6 picks away. Zay Jones is a guy I do like because with the Raiders last season, the last couple of weeks, he actually was pretty solid, and he's probably going to be in the outside with like 18 guys playing in the slot. Duvernay's a dart throw. Brian Robinson, a bit of a dart throw. Haskins, maybe a handcuff. So we're at that. McKenzie, is he going to play a ton? Is he going to play not at all? So I think we are at that point now of the draft. Your last 2 picks, probably throw a dart for upside. Who's a bit of a risk at this point of the draft that can either be nothing or something. So, is there tons of upside to Byron Pringle? I don't know. Is there, tons of upside to a guy like Justin Ross? Probably not. I mean, you just kind of got to juggle that. If Will Fuller gets signed, is there upside to him? So I might actually go that route with Fuller. I mean, Geno Smith's a guy that might start. He did get in some trouble, though. I think I'm going to take Fuller because, it was I thought it said 2022. It was a finger issue last year that lasted the entire season. So very, very strange with that with Will Fuller. But, the other thing people will say is that, this guy's hurt every single, Sunday. But the days that we see Will Fuller on the football field are usually pretty decent fantasy days. That season where he opened up with Deshaun Watson, it was him, Watson, and Brandon Cooks. Will Fuller had a lot of good days. So I think he was potentially stalling to see if Watson was going to be suspended or not. And then if not, he might have been a Cleveland Brown. It's not looking great for Watson. So at this point, where is he going to go? There's still many spots that can use a wide receiver. But at that point in the draft, I mean, that's a good dart throw right there, in my opinion. Will Fuller at 226. I like that. I'll take the chance there all day. Running backs. James White's been a guy that I've kind of looked at again. He's been a big part of the system. Washington is interesting. I might just go for complete dart throw at this point. Don't need a tight end. Geno Smith went complete dart throw. And who's it going to be? It's my last pick of the draft. Let's go Homer and just go Velus Jones Jr. That might be a wasted pick, but literally, we got guys in chat. He failed the 8-mile test. Steve and my guy Smokey. Appreciate you guys tuning in here. Velus Jones, we don't know who the second guy in Chicago is. I'm not a fan of Velus Jones' resume at all, and he's close to my age. I'm 30, but if he has a couple splash weeks at the 231 pick of this best ball draft, then maybe it's worth it. Maybe it's worth it, especially because we don't know. Byron Pringle got in trouble too. Pringle had a DUI situation. I don't know if he's going to be suspended. And then we got St. Brown, but not the good one in the system. And Dante Pettis, I think. I don't know. It's a mix of a bunch of random guys. I think it's going to be Mooney and Kmet. Maybe we'll have a few weeks. But overall, we'll see how they project this draft in a second. But I actually really like this draft because I like Derek Carr's potential for this season at pick 15. I think that's a great value in a super flex. Christian McCaffrey at pick 10. Love it. Then the list of wide receivers. There's some risk with them, but Waddle, Deontay, Judy, Russell Gage, that group right there, to me is solid. And then Olave, Parker, Bell, Fuller, those guys can have some pretty solid weeks. I have one of the best, if not the best, tight end for fantasy, drafted at 34. Love that. I'll take that. Maybe it's Maybe it's early in a super flex league, but again, because I did this, I didn't have to worry about my second tight end or even draft a third one. So that was kind of my strategy there. So how do we see what the so I drafted a couple of these teams. Let's see if I can pop into it's easy on the mobile app because they view the full draft. You can see who's projected what, but I'll have to figure it out on the desktop version. But if you guys tuned in at any point of this, appreciate it. Just trying to bust out the content as much as possible through the entire offseason. So it's important to me to stay consistent and put out, thoughts and do live drafts just to show people how these are going. Try to give guys an incentive to sign up. If you are not familiar with Underdog, I spent 50 minutes doing a draft. You got a slow Saturday. It's rainy here in Illinois. You can go and bust out some fantasy drafts for like $5 or $3. Use that promo code P2W Fantasy because if you throw in $10 and it'll give you $20. It'll match anything up to $100. So again, enjoy your guys' weekend. Thanks for tuning in, and let's play to win this season. Make that money.